I knew I didn't want to do that. Every single day I knew I didn't want to do that. And even when I did these things and was partaking in these substances and drugs, I still knew that wasn't me, and that's not what I want to be doing. Tomorrow I'm going to stop this. And that went on for more time than I even want to admit. But I think one day you just get so sick of telling yourself that. You get so sick of the lack of respect, especially for me as a man. I was like, I do not have any respect for myself.
What is the thing or things that you've had to quit in order to become successful?
I certainly had to quit
thinking it was too
the
big.
person that I was to get here. Being afraid that I was going to make mistakes. I quickly learned that the road to success is paved with failure.
Would you rather run under cold or hot weather?
Oh, cold weather. I'm in Texas, so hot weather is predominant here, but I do enjoy the cold weather. I do cold plunges too, so I think it's,
love those.
yeah, it really is refreshing. But
Yeah,
I
it
will say
resets
those
you.
are not as fun in the wintertime when it's cold outside. It kind of prepares you better when you get out of it and then you get into the hot weather.
Yeah, for sure. Would you rather go bungee jumping or skydiving?
Ooh, skydiving. I've actually never been bungee jumping, but I've been once skydiving.
But you have been skydiving? Oh,
Uh,
nice.
have
What
you?
was that feeling like? I
Uh,
haven't.
it's wild. Like, it's like a 3-second freak out moment when you jump out that you just regretted what you just did. You're like, what did I just do? And
Yeah,
you have to kick your feet back. So like when I was first going out and I jumped in the beginning, I was flailing and you have somebody basically strapped to you. And the guy
yeah.
was kicking me in the side because, he's like, hey, kick your feet because it levels you out. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was pretty intense. It was a lot of
yeah.
fun.
I would think that you start regretting at the moment that the plane starts going up. You're like,
Yeah,
okay, I don't know that I, made the right decision. I have a
right,
family, like
right.
I still want to be there for them.
Yeah.
Would you rather explore the jungle in Latin America or ride a camel in Egypt?
Ooh, Latin America for sure.
Nice, good choice.
Yeah.
Well, welcome guys to another episode of Successful Quitters, a podcast that explores the thing or things individuals have had to quit in order to become successful. And today we have a great guest. He is someone that has came from addictions into wanting to serve others through mindset, fitness, and nutrition. Welcome, James Dorsett.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure, James. Let's jump right into your beginning. Let's
So
go back to where you were at 5 years old. What was the life of James like back then?
5 years old, pretty normal childhood. Parents were together. I found out a little bit later on in life that my parents did the right thing and stayed together, tried to do the right by the kids. So weren't necessarily in that relationship for each other, but for the most part, it was a good childhood. I was raised up in church and good morals. Um, Parents loved each other, loved us. I have a little sister that's 3 years younger than me, so um, yeah, we were just toddlers running around, just doing the kid thing. As far as I can remember, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Who were you closest to, your mom or your dad?
I think my mom at that point, that kind of shifts. I think, my dad's my best friend now. I've been told that we're a twin flame. I went to
Yeah,
a reader one time just because I was curious, and he was there with me, and she was like, "Man, this is crazy. You guys are twin flames, so we're a lot alike, a lot different too." But my mom at that age, I think every child for the most part is comfortable with their mother and I guess the intimacy and the affection the moms bring to the table at that point.
yeah. And you have a sister. What was your relationship with her like?
We've always had a good relationship. We got older around teenage times. We kind of grew apart a bit, I think, as most do. She's, her friends doing her thing. I was out doing my thing, doing who knows what. Um, I kind of had it wasn't the most fun situation at home. So the minute I could kind of get out and start doing my own thing and hanging out with friends, and in my case, bad influences, that's kind of, as you mentioned, the addiction part of it. That's kind of where that started, is finding, and I'm in Texas, there's not a whole lot of outdoor activities. And I feel like if I was somewhere that had a lot more outdoors, I would have been all about that. Later on in life, I went and found surfing. I feel like that's kind of my passion. There's nothing to me like being out on a surfboard, panoramic views all around, and then this mysterious force of a wave that comes up behind you is just, so, kind of in big city life, we didn't have a lot to do but party, drink, and explore into other things. And that kind of became my reality and most of my influence.
Yeah.
So,
Can you, and this is just so that people can get to know you a little better, and also so that a lot of people can relate with you, because, most of us never have or all of us never have a perfect life and perfect childhood. So when you say, it was hard at home, what was it like?
well, I mean, I do agree. I don't think anybody has a perfect life, atmosphere, upbringing, but I just honestly had to kind of learn what love, and I think I've always idealized the whole love and affection thing because I really didn't see it firsthand with my parents for each other. I felt that
Mhm.
as a kid, I felt very loved, but as far as my parents with each other, I didn't have a good example of what that looked like, and I've always kind of fantasized and idealized what that would be like. And now I've got a little girl of my own. Best thing that's ever happened to me. It's kind of what pulled me out of my darker days and my misspent youth. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
just such a beautiful thing. I've always looked at that situation, and finding that right person to spend your life with is just being the most beautiful thing. Because, you know, uh, I used to be the child that, or the kid, and, as I was brought up hearing that whole relationships are hard, you can't live with them, can't live without them. And I found myself regurgitating that until a good friend of mine that, told me like it was, and he checked me. He was like, man, life's hard. That should be the last thing. Your relationship, your ground basis at home should be that, place that you go to get your solitude, and have that person there to share all those things with, and all the difficulties and struggles in life. And that should be your thing that recharges you and replenishes you. And I was like, man, you got a point. I think that one conversation changed my whole view on it. And I was like, man, he's right. That doesn't have to be it. I think people settle in the end finding somebody that does do it for them, and they find something that works well enough, and then they end up letting society and other things tell them that they should, stick with that, and that's the best they're going to get, or that's what they're supposed to do, or whatever. I think also morality comes into it. Nobody wants to break up with someone and not find something that works, so I think it's something that's, I don't know, different for everybody, but for me it's something special. I think when and
Yeah.
yeah, it takes work obviously, but I think it's such a beautiful thing when you do find that, and you have that, I've got her back, she's got my back, and we do this life thing together, and we add to each other's cups, we fill each other up. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to
For
find.
sure. Absolutely. And you haven't gone through that in your childhood days. But I ask this because I know a lot of women that say, I'm going to stay with the father of my kids because of the kids. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes I find that it hurts the kids more than it helps them. So
Uh-huh.
from your perspective, would you say that it's a good thing or a bad thing if, parents stay together because of the kids rather than because they will be there for one another, they will love each other, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously things are not going to be perfect. Things are going to take compromise, but in the end, nobody wants to be putting a child into a broken home situation. That's not anything. I'm not with my daughter's mom anymore. And I think, you know, having it being so serious to me to find something that really does work, and, uh, works well for both parties, definitely led probably some into that decision that wasn't right. And I don't know. It depends on case to case, but I think if it's something where you just truly in your heart know that this isn't, maybe you're not going in the same direction together. You don't want the
Yeah,
same things in life, and you want to, because I think especially when children come into play, you need to focus on, we're a unit, and we're taking this child and we're showing them the best things of life. We're showing them what, a functional relationship looks like, what two people that
exactly.
love, respect, and care about each other, what that looks like. And then also we're able together to show the love, and then also the polarities between like a mother and father's role with the child. So
Yeah,
I think if
because if
those
not,
fundamentals,
if not, they wouldn't know what to look forward to or what to look for whenever they grow up, right?
absolutely. I mean,
Because it's like
you're setting an
you're
example.
teaching them to settle. Right, right, right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
kids, I've said this with my daughter, if I wanted my daughter to get in ballet, I'd be the father in there wearing a tutu, in
Yeah.
the dance hall doing it with her, because in the end they're gonna see the passion in what you're doing and the example you're showing, rather than what you tell them. It's like, of course, someone from maybe a situation or a split household, they're gonna try to tell them about love, but if they don't find that person to maybe show them and set that example of what that looks like. And it goes into all different aspects of life, who you are as a person, not even a parent. Are you this person that has values and shows them what, you know, self-discipline, self-respect, truthfulness, like all these different values that, I think a real man or woman wants to show their kids. They want to lead by that example and show them who that is,
And it does
rather
take
than,
self-discipline to break up and go when you're so used to a toxic environment.
right.
So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
huge. That's a huge example. And what was high school like for you? Were you outgoing? Were you keep to yourself?
Yeah. So high school, I went to freshman year in the traditional high school. Um, I was kind of a little shit kid. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I got into fights. I came from an area that didn't have a lot of money. My parents moved to the city that I started high school in, and my dad had a good job, but he ended up losing his business and selling it and kind of losing in the next venture that they went for, him and his business partners. So I was kind of the kid in this higher, I guess you would say, higher income area that wasn't a higher income child. I didn't have nice things, and I was kind of
Yeah.
the kid that got bullied and made fun of because of maybe the shoes I was wearing or where my clothes came from. And so I didn't take to that too well. I didn't put up with shit. So I didn't get along with those kids. And then I basically found a buddy that I was playing baseball with, started going to a self-paced school where you could go for 4 hours a day, which in my opinion, I think this should be more of a traditional model at this point, where you go and you get the work done for 4 hours, you're out by lunch, and then you can
Mhm.
go do whatever for the rest of your day. And I know that doesn't work with the typical parent schedule and stuff, that would make it hard, but it really was for me, the type of kid I was. I was more of an introvert. I kind of kept to myself. I wanted to go home and just go do my thing and explore outdoors, or, I wasn't a real social kid. And
How were your grades? Did you actually like learning back then, or were you like,
well,
I'm so over this?
yeah, I think I was understimulated. I mean, I've never had a hard time learning. I've had a hard time with learning about things I truly just didn't care about, as I think most kids do. I think that's the big problem with the other problem with the traditional school model, is that they're not finding what kids' passions and interests and
Yes.
their aspirate or what they're good at. Like, I'm good at this. I'm a numbers person, or I enjoy English and art, or what these different things are, and then kind of dive into, okay, well, for you, let's do this curriculum because this is more oriented towards you. Obviously, you're not going to go off to be a scientist or a mathematician, so let's focus on these other things that you actually do excel in. And so I don't feel like like I didn't do well in history or math necessarily. I wasn't like a big rules, numbers person or facts person. I was more of like an English, art, social studies, stuff like that. It definitely interested me, and I enjoyed learning about these things, probably because I kind of looked around in life and I was like, I could actually benefit off of knowing this information versus stuff that I knew I didn't want to go do and I probably wouldn't do much with.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, you know, kids go to school for like 8 hours, parents are at work. No one really sees what your talents are. Parents get home, they're tired from work. They don't have the time
Uh,
to see what your talents are. And everyone's like cookie cutter style, getting
uh,
out of school with the same skills that take you nowhere. And at that point, who really supports you to continue going on your passion and all that good stuff? Did
right.
you end up finishing high school or no?
I did. And I went and got my bachelor's at community college
Oh,
too.
nice.
The funny thing about that in this same conversation was that I felt like starting in college, you started right back into the fundamentals of all the stuff that you'd already kind of touched and learned on in high school. So I think I racked up in my third year of college, third year, but I wasn't going full time. But I racked up like $10,000 of debt in one semester going to
Yeah.
a university when I was like, man, this is literally the same stuff I've been learning now for 3 years. And I've got $10,000 debt in one semester. Well, that's crazy. Like, how am I gonna continue to do this? Not really be learning a bunch of stuff that I'm excited and know I'm gonna prosper and benefit from, And I was just
What was your
sort of
major?
business administration. So I always knew I wanted to be some sort of an entrepreneur. My father definitely, he had his own business and always kind of pressed on me and impressed upon me that, you should try to find your own business, try to find something you want to do and try to find a way you can do it for yourself. And I was always very appreciative of that because it's kind of been my mindset. I've had a ton of jobs, but I feel like in all the jobs that I went and had for working for other people, for the most part, I'd get into them and I'd be excited about it. I'd be like, oh, this is going to be great. And then I'd start looking around. I'd start looking at the people at the top in this company and just be like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I can't put myself in that guy's shoes and I don't want to be that guy. So I just kind of hopped around to a bunch of jobs, ended up getting a bunch of work experience, sales experience. I'm grateful for every bit of experience because it all brought me to a place where I, now don't mind talking to anybody. I've kind of got a little taste of a lot of different fields of work, what that's like, and kind of, I've done everything from repo trucks to repo cars and
That's funny.
trucks to sales, door-to-door sales. I bartended for a good amount of time. I was in the service industry for like 10 years. I never really did the corporate desk work because that was never me. I didn't even play that could ever work for me. But besides that, I hopped into all different kinds of like retail jobs and this and that, made some decent money, but I just never had that feeling that this was really doing it and this could be it for me, and I was set on something in my heart. I think knew that I needed to find that thing that excited me, that I knew would be fulfilling if I went all in on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you left home prior to graduating from college, yeah?
hmm I left home when I was 17, I believe, and
So
got my own
great.
apartment. Yeah, I was driving school buses at the time, getting up at like 4 a.m., not, and still trying to party and do that thing. I don't know how I did it. That was, I wouldn't say that was the safest, best decision of my life, but I made it work for a little bit. And then, yeah, I just started hopping. I got my first sales job shortly after that, started working on commission.
What were
Thought
you
I was
selling?
doing I was selling cell phones back when they had like
Oh,
the flip phones, like you remember the Razor phone, the Motorola?
yes, yes,
Came in all the different colors. That was like the thing
yes.
in the prime of the time that I was selling phones back when they were like $200-300. Now they're like 5-6 times that. But you know, basically we have a
Yeah.
little mini computer in our pocket now, so I get it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when it is at that time when the partying started, and that's when addictions got
Uh,
to you.
Yeah,
And
basically
what were these?
when I graduated high school, I would say is when I really started partying hard. I actually lost a real good buddy that was basically a brother of mine. I slept on his mom's couch for a good amount of time before we got that first apartment together. And then yeah, he had a kind of a fluke situation with that caused him to pass away, and that really hit me hard, and I just really went off the deep end after that. I didn't
Mm.
really care about anything. I was angry, I was upset. I just didn't I stopped caring about too much and just really went kind of had I looked around at one point and I saw that all my influences, the people I'd surrounded myself with, I started selling weed and drugs and pills, and it just kind of went downhill. I got a place downtown and I started really doing that and being efficient at it. I was actually pretty good at it looking back. The entrepreneur spirit,
Such
I
a
guess.
great businessman, right?
Yeah, I was like, man, this is too easy. Like, I go and pick this stuff up and these people come park on the main street downstairs and I just run it down, and it's usually the case. It's usually easy money, and then you figure out, man, I'm glad I got out of that time because it got to where it kind of consumed who I was, and it was everybody I knew was in that lifestyle, bartending at that time, and just that whole environment together. I looked around, I was like, man, this is not me. This isn't what I'm going to look around and be proud of being. And I really wanted to be out of it, but I didn't really know how to get out of it. I was very lost as far as, being, also being dependent on substances that I'd gotten into. Pretty hardcore stuff. I was into like pills and opiates, and that turned
Mhm.
into heroin, and just really went too far with it. And I think one day I met my daughter's mom. We were both kind of tired of being in Dallas, and she had some family out in Maui. So I was kind of in the thick of it, and both of us just decided to, why not? Let's just go and be somewhere else and see how that goes. And I think she kind of knew that would help me get out of this situation, since everybody I knew in this whole circle that I'd gotten myself into,
And
you
she knew
know,
you liked waves, so
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I hadn't figured that out yet, but actually I went to Maui when I was a kid, funny enough,
Mm.
with my family. But yeah, going there and living there for a year twice, I mean, talk about sense of community, talk about just people that are living for the present. I went down there a few times and caught myself saying stuff like, what are you guys doing later? And they're like, oh, we're gonna go watch the sunset. And I'm like, go watch the sunset. Well, what are you gonna be doing? And they're like, no, that's like a thing here. We'll go get a six pack and a lawn chair and we'll sit there and we'll watch the sun go down. And I was like, damn, that sounds amazing. And it was just a totally different way of life that I knew nothing about. I was always kind of surrounded with the mentality of, what we're doing, what am I going to go do? What are we going to go drink or do? And, that whole mindset, it's just so faulty, and so unfulfilling. So going out there and finding such a like holistic, just fulfilling way of looking, and just the people there, like the native people there are just some of the most amazing people I've met. I had some really good encounters with some really good people, met some awesome influences in my life during that time. So obviously clean myself up. My passion now is helping people. Now I'm just focusing on, how far can I go? How high can I elevate my life? Because, I see all these people. Online's been a great resource, little community I've found on here of people like you and others that are really doing good things with themselves and wanting to help, and, found God again. I believe we fool ourselves that we can out trick our consciousness that's always gnawing in the back of our head. He's always there. Whether you're going to acknowledge him or not, he's going to be there, and he knows exactly what it is and what choices you're making every single day. So the more that
Yeah.
we're not doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, that we know we need to be doing, that's just that's such a heaviness. It's such a weight. I don't think a lot of people take that seriously. They just think, okay, they rationalize. And that's what I was doing when I was caught into, drugs and other things. I was rationalizing why I was doing it that day. Well, a lot of people
Mhm.
also rationalize why they're not doing things because they're busy or their work schedule or because they're a father or mother or whatever the case, because I don't have time, it's like, well, nobody has time. And, you either find a way or you can find a way to make an excuse that you can't do it.
Yeah. Do you recall what was that moment or that small period of time where you were like, I cannot do this anymore? In the step, kind of like the first steps that you took to get out of it. Because for myself, I've never had a drug addiction, but I'm pretty sure that it's extremely difficult if I'm already in the hole, if I'm already down there in darkness, not listening to my conscience. I know I'm doing everything wrong. How do I have the strength? Where do I find that strength to pick myself up and out of there
Uh-huh.
on my own? Because even though people can't support you, they're there. It's a decision that you have to make for yourself. So do
Uh-huh.
you recall what it was like for you when you were in there?
I do. So I actually had a couple very close calls where I maybe shouldn't have lived through,
Mm.
situation. And you would think that those were the ones that would have woken me up and I'd be like, oh man, I'm not doing that. But I was still so involved and so surrounded by that, not only that
When
atmosphere.
when these things happened and you went into places where like maybe you weren't gonna survive, was your family involved at all, or did they never find out?
Yeah, my family, they did find out. And that was probably the biggest
Mm.
guilt I've had because obviously nobody wants to know that something almost killed their little boy, little girl, and the guilt of that. But honestly, those happenings weren't even what was enough for me to make that decision to do better. I personally, I was still so caught up in what I was doing that I was, I woke up every day and that's my reality that I knew. That's what I'd created. So I also knew it's weird because you in that environment, you'll have other people that have similar situations or stories. And then,
Mm.
you kind of also rationalize it because they're like, oh yeah, that almost happened to me too. Or yeah, I had this crazy situation, this close call too, man. And it's like, it, it's the wrong influences that are actually going to help you rationalize for these things that you shouldn't be doing in the first place. So I think for me, to answer your question, it was actually just getting so tired of telling myself every single day that I was going to not do this tomorrow. Like, and that was a big rationality that I took from, being in that environment, being in that mindset, being that addictive personality that I was that I knew I didn't want to do that. And even when I
Mm.
did these things and was partaking in these substances and drugs, I still knew that wasn't me. And that's not what I want to be doing. Tomorrow, I'm going to stop this. And that went on for more time than I even want to admit. But I think one day you just get so sick of telling yourself that. You get so sick of the lack of respect, especially for me as a man. I was like, I do not have any respect for myself. I can't follow through with even the smallest thing, like not doing something, like not making a
Yeah.
phone call and going to pick this thing up or doing this or taking this or whatever it may be. That I was completely broken. I was like, man, I see all these empowered people. I see all these great men and women doing these amazing things in life, totally selfless. But yet I'm sitting here so selfish that I'm putting me and what I want to do for myself to take myself out of an environment, make myself feel better. But really, it was that I was breaking myself down further just each day. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think, and starting something kind of goes the same way, like starting a I hate the word diet, but like starting a fitness program or starting to make better choices, because I think it just is a gradual thing. These people that go all in, I'm going to not eat any more of this, or I'm not going to do any more of this. It does take that you're not going to maybe partake in the junk and, not going to sit on your couch and not do anything for the day. But it is also a step process into starting that and just realizing that this is a lifestyle change that starts today. And I'm going to start step one today. I'm going to do a couple less, I'm going to make a couple better decisions. I'm going to do a little less of this, or I'm going to do a little more of this, whatever. Obviously, whatever you're struggling with would depend on what you're trying to do. But I mean, yeah, it's just having that confidence that you're that person that will actually say you're going to do something and then follow through and actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And once you decided I'm gonna stop doing this, did you move right away or did you stay in the US for a little bit?
Um, the minute I actually chose to stop, I did. And
Ah,
it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't like a gradual thing. It was ugly. It was a hard time, but in my mind, I knew I deserved this. I had to work through this. I had to get past this because I brought this on myself. And I think we just have to actually own that and realize like this one decision that I know I can't make again is the one decision that will lead me right back into that whole situation of, making excuses or making up reasons or finding ways to rationalize what I was doing again. And
yeah.
I think quite literally, especially with substances, that's exactly how it is. You have to either walk away from it, you know, like I'll still have an occasional drink. I'm not a total anti-alcohol person, but I know that I don't really enjoy that too much. So it's like I can just do that as an occasional thing. That was not my problem ever.
I
So
just quit drinking.
really, I
Yeah.
mean, I very
Yeah.
seldom do. I'll have like a cigar every once in a while with a buddy or like a glass of whiskey or scotch, but I don't like going out and drinking. It's just, not my thing. I don't go to bars. I don't go out too much. And like I said, I'll have a beer or something if it's appropriate and it's an occasion. But,
Mhm.
you know, if that's your struggle and if you're someone who likes to drink and that's what you have a problem with, then yeah, I think you should make that decision that, hey, I'm just not going to have any more drinks. It's not that important. And then show yourself also. And it was the same with the substances for me. I thought socially that these things enhanced my time and that with going and getting higher doing these things that it made my time better. It made me a more fun person to be around. And when you show yourself that you don't need this and that had nothing to do with actually what you're doing or who you are, I think that confidence that you give yourself in doing so is priceless. Like there's nothing else that's gonna give you that type of self-worth, that value that, hey,
Yeah.
I am
I,
this
I thought
person.
I thought the same thing with drinking, and then I realized that your frequency goes down so much when you drink. And the way I saw it was, why would I allow others to make decisions for me? Because there were times where I drink a lot, right? I
Uh-huh.
didn't drink that often, but when I did and it was a party, then it was a party and I was super drunk,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Wasted. So why would I put my life into someone else's hands and have them make decisions for myself, because sometimes it's like that. I'm always surrounded, or I used to be surrounded by people that I knew most of the time. But what if you don't? It's just putting yourself in a situation where it's completely unnecessary, where you can have so much fun, as much fun if you don't drink.
uh-huh,
It's the same thing, and have control over everything that you're doing and not have any regrets the next day.
uh-huh. Absolutely.
Anyway, what is, how were you able to change your circle of friends after coming back? Because that's another thing. Do you still keep in touch with all the friends, those friends that maybe you hung out with that were having the same situation? How do you change? How do you upgrade that?
So yeah, I actually had a few friends that are still like brothers to me, like family. And they were there in those times. They were there for me through those times. But I feel like I distanced myself. And they were the types that were actually the positive influence all along.
Mm,
And it was just that I wanted to make different choices and I chose not to let those people in my life very much. And my circle's pretty small these days. I don't know if you can relate, but kind of when you go on this journey where you're not doing a lot socially, or you're kind of
for sure.
focusing on doing your own thing, and like you said, your frequency and doing the things that make me feel at my best, and trying and working and doing all these things. You don't have a lot of time for one to have a lot of social life, but for two, I do have some very, very important, very meaningful relationships. And it's funny because those are the ones that I actually went back to and was like, man, this person's been here for me all along. And I never really saw it. I was in such a different mindset and mind frame that I actually thought at one point, I think that they were not that great of friends to me. And I
Mm.
convinced myself, but really they just didn't partake in that lifestyle or want anything to do with it, but they loved me, and
Yeah.
I think that's how it is, even with family and stuff. When you're going through that, you might feel like they're against you, but really they love you. They're going to be there for you regardless, and they're just waiting on you to realize, hey, hopefully realize that there's a lot better choices. There's a lot more in store for you if you would just realize these things. But it's honestly, it wasn't for me and for most people something that you can just tell someone, hey, because when you do, it feels like they're attacking or judging you. And unfortunately, most people just have to figure that out, that that's not the way, hopefully. And, again, that's why I'm here. And that's why, anybody that I care about, I'm reaching out to these days, hey, I'm here, totally unjudgmental if you're dealing with anything. And I think checking in with your people is very important too, because
Yeah.
I do think if more people would have checked in with me and really
Mm.
had some good conversations, it could have swayed. It wouldn't have changed, what I was about, but it definitely could have, shown me that, hey, there's love outside of this, especially in that time where I felt like my whole influence circle was these people that were in the same vicious cycle that I was. And it would have kind of
Yeah.
made me contemplate the fact, am I making the best choices? And so I think that just unconditional type love and just reaching out to people you love and letting them know, hey, I'm here regardless. If you want to do something with that or reach out, I'm here, but hey, no pressure, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at that these days.
For sure. That's very powerful. And you also brought up a few times this thing about listening to your conscience, which is it's something that we all have because we all have a conscience.
Yeah.
But for myself, it took me up until and lately now, a couple of months ago, to where I was like, okay, my conscience actually exists. And there is a voice that is actually telling me, stop, don't
Yeah.
go that way. You should do this. You should do that. And I was always brushing it off. I remember listening to it a couple of very pivotal moments in my life since I was 14 years old. But after that, it's been like, okay, I know I have to go that route, but, do I really have to?
Yeah.
So, how is it that you are able to connect with your conscience? What helped you connect with your conscience and be like, okay, I'm going to let you guide?
I think, again, just taking the steps for me, it was implementing small daily steps into my life that were showing me the right path and showing me that I was capable of that path. Where, like I said in the past, I didn't even know how to get to the point where I could be doing those things and having that lifestyle. So it has to start small. But I think once you start that path and you get rid of the bad influences and the things you shouldn't be doing, then your mindset opens and your conscious really starts talking to you, or at least it did to me. And it really started,
Yeah.
nagging at me too, that, it's at a certain point I was probably proud that I got out of what I was doing, but it wasn't long until I was also being nagged at about, hey, you're not doing this now. Like, you could be doing more. You could be,
Right.
pushing harder. Are you doing everything? And I do think that's, like a voice from God directing us,
Yes.
whether we want to listen to it or not. And again, a lot of the substances and drugs and stuff, they take you out of that. They take you out of
Yeah.
the ability to hear that voice and have that. And if you do hear it, you shut it out real quickly because you're like, no, 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 I'm going to do what I want to do versus, what I'm called to do. I think I've realized that we all have a calling, and when you do find how to be that person and become that person, or at least you're on that journey of finding the best version of yourself, then you start to want to share that with people. At least that's how it worked for me. I really just
Yeah.
feel like I don't care where someone is at. Nobody's perfect and nobody's got it figured out. But I really respect even the person that's stepping foot in the gym the first time, really struggling and uncomfortable. I'll usually try to go over and say something to say, hey man, I appreciate you being here. That's awesome. Like, how are you doing? Because you never know that one thing that you could say to somebody that might just be the one source of motivation they needed in a very hard time where they're there and they feel super uncomfortable. They don't know what they're doing, and that goes to a lot of different things, not just the gym, but I mean, even like I've got one of my guys, I do some coaching, and his thing was getting up and walking every morning. And at
Mm.
first it was hard to get out of bed. It was getting up earlier, but then that started to be the thing that he looked forward to. That started to be when he would start hearing these things, from his conscious. He would start having these breakthroughs in his mind and like start being called to then do more. Okay, I'm doing this and I'm confident I can do this every morning now. Let's add something else. And that's when he came and was like, all right, I'm ready. I don't push anybody because everybody's timing is different. But I think if you're that person that's following what your conscious is telling you and you're actually acting on it, then you've got all my respect, because to me, that's just, you do that consistently for years at a time, and you're going to look back in years and not even know who that person was that you were. And that's
Yeah.
just, I think, how life works and how life should work. I think we do lack a big sense of community in most places, at least here in the US, because, it's such a big hustle bustle. Everybody's struggling, trying to, survive and get by. And like you said, go to work, and then your kids are at home, and that has to be the main focus when you get off work. And then you get up and rinse and repeat. And it doesn't give us a lot of room for, social interactions, even with our loved ones. Usually, like, we'll usually see them every once in a while, but, you know, who then becomes your positive influence group? Who then becomes those people that understand that journey that you're on, what you want for yourself, that you want better things. And that, it honestly can be a lonely journey. Once you kind of start distancing, especially if, say you had drinking buddies that you went out with and kept, that's what you did on the weekends or after hours, and now you're not drinking. Where does that pick back up? Where do you find those people that understand what you're doing and where you're
Yeah.
where you're going? And who are those people that you can get that reinforcement from? Because we're social beings.
Yeah.
Us humans, we're meant to have people around us that we can interact with and love, and show we appreciate each other and have each other's backs. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a beautiful thing, especially with the internet and like social media, that's shown like not everything's positive in social media and what's happening, but that was the main thing. I wasn't even on social media before I started considering doing the coaching, because I saw a few people doing this thing and I was like, man, that's really amazing that you can touch people that you've never met face to face. A lot of my really good friends that I consider almost family, I've never met them face to face now. And I mean, my people on my coaching were from different parts of the world, and
Yeah.
we almost felt like we were family, like we're in the same room sometimes. And it's a very powerful thing. And I think that's where a lot of things are turning around in society, and it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think social media can definitely be used positively. And also, I can speak from my experience through my transformation that happened really out of my wanting to grow, but also out of nowhere. It's kind of like I surrounded myself with a different circle and I started coming up. But then what I realized is that we have to be very intentional when it comes to who we're surrounding ourselves with.
Okay.
So if I'm in a place where I don't know anything about health, I don't know anything about the gym, then it's so important that you surround yourself with people that have been where you were or where you are, that can take you to the next level. Because if you don't get coached by someone, and that's the power of coaching, right? If you
Okay.
don't get coached by someone, then you have to learn it on your own and it takes you longer.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you have to see, where is it that I want to go, and surround yourself with people that are already there,
Right.
right? And you can always get coached for you coach for mindset, you coach for the gym and being in shape and nutrition.
Nice.
So if someone is needing that help, then it's so easy to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm lost. How do I
Absolutely.
get there?" I love eating. How can I have a different lifestyle where I don't have to diet, like you said,
Uh-huh.
but eat cleaner? How
Uh-huh.
can I still eat something that's yummy, but that is prepared in a different way to where I can still, keep my macros and continue to or get to the shape that I want to get to?
Absolutely.
Because it's a process. It's not something that it's like you hire someone and next month you're already in shape. It's something where you have to be consistent and
Mhm.
also be compassionate with yourself, right?
Totally. Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest value I got from the coaching I've had is even jumping on and that's kind of how mine is structured. We'll do a weekly call, but even having other people that are on the same journey with you, I heard people asking questions that I wouldn't have even been able to put into words, but they ask a question and then the coach is able to share who's already been down that road, who's already had that experience and what that's like. And like you just said, that you're going to have these different changes and the dynamic, like whenever you go down this journey, there's also going to be points like, for instance, where you start doing better for yourself, you start getting that ball and that momentum rolling, and then there's going to be people out here who want that, and I don't even think it's a conscious thing, but they do try to kind of latch on and do try to take some of that energy from you because they want that. And it's like it's a magnetic thing. When you start
Yes.
feeling good about yourself, when you start doing these things and having that confidence, people see you and they feel that and they're like, wow, I'm attracted to this person. But like you said, you have to be very intentional and careful about who you allow to come in and how close they can get to you to be able to access that. And without, as a new person going down this journey, without that bit of direction or insight, they're going to get to that point and have to learn all those lessons so much harder. So it's like you could spend 5 years getting to this point, or say you got into a group that had a lot of good people doing the same things that you're doing and learning all of these things ahead of time to look out for. And it might, take that time down to maybe 2 years that you could get to that same point and keep progressing even faster. So I think it's just a multiplication thing. At first becoming a coach and having that title and thinking of myself that way, it felt odd. It was kind of a
Yeah.
hard thing to be like, who am I to coach other people? It was like a imposter syndrome. But then it's like the coaches I've learned from, I have a lot of love for and respect for. And it's really like literally the point where I don't feel like I would be at the point I am right now if I wouldn't have learned from these people. And I would have probably been way, way behind where I'm at now, still trying and still dealing with a lot more lost feelings and just a lot more wondering and speculation about where am I at or what am I need to be, where's the next step and stuff like that. Where if you have kind of a structured guideline or at least someone sitting there helping you through those next steps and helping it, you obviously need it customized to what you want to do. But someone who's kind of got some input for you it really did a lot for me. And I can't imagine going back through my journey and getting to where I'm at now without all of that. I don't know what I'd look like right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is the perfect time to take advantage of it because we have the internet. So basically,
Yes.
literally, you can choose whoever you want from whatever country, and that person can serve you in the same way that, we used to do it in the same city, in person. Now you can do everything online. And
So,
also, one thing that is so important, because I want to go a little bit into relationships and how masculinity works and how men
love that.
are going to be able to attract the right person and how a woman can attract the right person. And the first thing that I want to say is that I just learned this as well. You attract, or whoever your ex is, you are that person. You used
Uh,
to be that person when you were with your ex because
uh,
life is a mirror, not a window.
yep.
So a lot of things you don't really think about so much, as much as you need to, but in reality, whatever bothers you about that person, in a way, that's who you are.
Yeah.
So, in order for us, men or women, to attract better,
Yeah.
we have to become better because, like you said, we're magnets. So, people, the higher our frequency, the higher frequency people we're going to attract.
Yeah.
So, if I'm single, I'm working on myself to attract the kind of men that I want, but I couldn't expect a man that is at a higher frequency if I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So although we're women and we're like, okay, yeah, men this and this and that, we also have to work on ourselves
Yeah.
to get that man that didn't do the things our ex did, but we cannot just talk about our ex in a bad way because that used to be a reflection,
Yeah.
right? So what
Absolutely.
is a masculine man to you?
Man, so that's funny. I love that you brought this up because I've been looking into, and I know a lot of people out here are, the terms are very attractive, but the divine masculine and divine feminine have been something that I've had a lot of influences, even people just randomly coming into my circle, educating me and talking about these things. So I feel like I'm starting to understand them more because obviously everybody wants to be the divine masculine or divine feminine. That's a great word. But I do think um, it is a very like you do need to have that confidence in yourself so that you can then share that confidence with someone rather than, and just like a lot of women are looking for the man to come in and kind of fix and save their situation and help. A lot of men, I'll even admit it, like myself, have this whole, um, I don't even know what I would call it, but like wanting to go in and help be that person. Like I want to go help this person that's in this situation or that's struggling or has, some issues. And either one of those aspects are just very, very faulted because, we both need to be in a place where you don't need one another. You come together because you want and you appreciate and, they're bringing value, but it's not that you need. I believe when we need something from someone, then that turns into some sort of at least option or possible resentment. Because if you
Yeah.
have these expectations, you're needing this or wanting this from them, and then that person doesn't understand or doesn't know what it's great. Communication can be one thing, but sometimes it's just underlying expectations. But
Yeah.
I think a divine man, like the masculine man, is someone who is a provider, is a protector, also is in touch with his emotional side and can communicate. And those two are the biggest things for me. I've always looked up to
Yeah.
like that masculine, cold, no emotion, a lot of Hollywood paints this picture of like, the man that just runs around, doesn't say much, doesn't have like too many people in his life. He's just that dude that just goes and handles business and doesn't talk about it, doesn't feel it, doesn't, and it's just not realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
even some of the most masculine and strongest, most amazing men that I've met and seen, and maybe not met personally, but, learned about. I've read a lot of books and autobiographies and stuff. They have that side. They have that side that they want to open or they're willing to open up and share with someone. But again, like you said, you need to have that trust and that bond with someone that, and then they also need to be worthy of giving that trust to, and just man or woman. I believe, you shouldn't, just like you said with your energy, I don't think you should share that type of trust or that type of, emotional investment into just anybody, because then
So
you're just bouncing around frustrated, wondering why this person didn't give you or do enough for you, or you couldn't do enough for them, or, it I've kind of been guilty of that, trying to figure out why I couldn't give enough or why I couldn't do enough, why I wasn't enough. And then now looking back and taking complete ownership for everything in my life, I'm still not perfect, but starting to take ownership of everything in my life, I'm like, man, these are things that I didn't have in myself. I was
yeah.
looking to have them appreciated when I wasn't giving the right things. I wasn't giving off the right energy, or I wasn't supporting correctly. I wasn't communicating, or I wasn't showing emotion. Sometimes for men, it's just, how do I show emotion? How do I communicate? I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds ridiculous, but I mean, it's quite literally something I've had to learn. Especially with my upbringing, my parents were very kind of cut off from one another, and it was very, you know, short spoken words or strife. It was like
Oh,
very reactional. And that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
what I
yeah.
was programmed with. So learning communication, how beautiful that is, and also learning the other aspect of it, which is building that confidence in yourself so that you know what you'll tolerate, what you could deal with, what you would accept in someone else. And then when you let that person in, or you find that person, which I haven't yet, so I just am building myself and trying to get myself raise my frequency and my vibration to the point where I would attract this person that I know I could actually appreciate and share my life with.
Yeah, because here's the thing. It part of and going back to what we were talking about fitness, part of building your confidence is fitness.
I
Because
mean,
although you can say, no, like that's that people I want people to see me for the kind of heart I have. That's not how life.
I mean,
So fitness not only keeps you healthy, but it also makes you feel and look great. It
uh-huh,
makes you feel and look your best. And then the thing is that what I did throughout my entire life, which is what 99% of people do, is I was dating people thinking of what they could become
uh,
rather than who they were.
yep,
So I was the fixer, right? It's like, oh, you're this, but you could be all of this. You just
yeah.
have to be someone else,
You see the best,
basically.
you see the best potential in people, which is not a bad thing. I do the same. I've said the same thing.
But
And
but the problem is, or the thing is that you have to date the person and accept them for who they are.
yeah,
And if there you see potential, and it's great to see potential, but you cannot date someone having those expectations. You have to,
right,
if you want something better, you have to become better so you attract better.
right, exactly. So you meet them there, not want to bring them up to being there. Yeah. Because that's been several
Yes.
past relationships where it's frustrating. And I really didn't have a right to be frustrated because that person had already shown me these things, but I wanted them to have, I knew they're capable of more. Hey, your potential is there. But if they don't want it, you're never going to convince or talk someone into being a better version of themselves or doing these things that you need them to do. It's just the reality of it. And it's a little delusional to think, and I'm very guilty of it too, that this person could be this person I think they are rather than who they're showing me they are.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're showing you this is exactly who I am, but we're like, no, but you could do this and you could do that. And that's how relationships go wrong.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
if you had to give an advice to women from a male perspective to a single person, what is it that you would say?
As far as relationships, yeah, it's pretty much what you said, literally. Work on yourself, um, so that you not only don't need someone to come in and be these things for you that you want, you find them. And see, this is where it gets a little tricky in my understanding, and maybe hopefully I'll figure this out better. But I know for a woman, especially to step into that divine feminine, then she needs to feel that support, needs to feel that that she's good, that she's taken care of, that she's, you know, safe. And I do believe at a certain point, she needs to find that in herself before she's ever going to find that in someone else. Once she finds it in herself, and it's the same as a man, but once you find that in yourself, that you're good, I don't need anybody, I don't need anything. Now it gets taken to extremes too, where they're just like, I don't need or want anything at that point. Then you shouldn't even be trying to think or talk about finding someone or letting someone come into your life. But I think if you're at the point where you're like, I'm good, I've got myself figured out, I can communicate, I know what I want, I know who I would accept, sharing my life with, But then you find someone and they're able to come in and they're also at that point where they want to give these things, and you see these qualities in them, not from what they say, but from what they show you. And I
Yeah.
think that's when that meshing, that reciprocity will happen, because it's a polarity thing. I do believe in most relationships. I'm not one of these people that thinks it should be one way or another. Whatever works for people works for people. But in a traditional sense, the majority of us need the polarity. The women is going to really be attracted to a masculine man that handles business, that is able to support and protect and provide. And the man wants to do these things, and they want to be appreciated, and they want a woman that's also going to do that, but then aid in the things that allows him to do those things. So I think that's really the best dynamic that makes sense to me. And but I think the key thing is exactly what you said. What we're talking about is just finding it in yourself, being okay in where you're at, who you are, and then working daily on just continuing to improve that. You don't need to find someone and then be like, okay, I'm there. You know what I mean? Like,
Done.
I got there. Because if you found someone that's also doing the work, they're not going to want to stop, or they shouldn't. Hopefully you don't meet each other and then just quit working on yourself. I think then you work on each other. The man should be pouring into her as she's pouring into him. And I think that's when the beautiful situation comes about that most people dream and fantasize about, but maybe are or aren't willing to put in the work to get there, and to attract the right things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not growing consistently, both parties, eventually you'll grow apart. And that's what happens. That's how it is. Since you are coaching now for mindset and all these things, how do you apply this to your being a father and having a daughter? How are you setting her up so that at least she has her mindset taken care of as much as you possibly can, so that she has a little bit of a better outcome as a woman?
I take a big responsibility on myself. It's a big driving factor for me to be the man, be the example, be there for her, be able to communicate, be able to show her compassion and love,
Mm.
all of these things, and yet also show her, in my opinion, what she's going to probably look for in a man, which is what she's going to look to me to figure out. If she respects me, if I'm the man I know I am inside, if I've created the man that she respects, that I respect, then I know she's going to take and look for these same traits in a man. So that's why I take being a father so seriously. It's like it's the biggest value, the biggest important, you know, obligation that I have on my life and I put on myself, is just doing these things, being of service, being, someone who has built myself into someone who can be of service to others and be of service to her, and pour into her and show her what this life is about, show her how to overcome obstacles, and, be a free thinker, be an objective thinker, to ask questions, to wonder, to see that more things are possible than what most people think. I think all of those are I mean,
Yeah.
she's a beautiful, smart little girl, and she's so capable, artistic, brilliant, and I think the world of her. So I just want the world for her. And I think that's the biggest calling I could have as a man, as a father, is just being the best version of me, so that I could set the best example, so that she's got the best outlook on what that looks like, what she would look for as a man. And then also she could also see, because I believe in an aspect, she's going to look for her mom for, like, what she's going to be like as a woman, but also she's going to look at me to know, kind of how that works together as well, in a sense. So
Yeah. James, what is a thing outside of what we've talked about that you've had to quit in order to become the James that you are nowadays?
so I'm big on, I know there's some out here that talk about never failing, never breaking on things. I don't believe that's realistic, especially for most, professional people that work, that are parents, that are these things. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect at this, but for me, it's been not putting things off, not basically accepting that I've got a reason that I cannot do this today, and just looking at it as like, am I physically or mentally capable of actually doing this? And then when you push through, showing yourself that you actually got it done, then the next time that things comes along or something similar, then I look at it completely different. I'm like, I really don't want to. I don't think I can, but let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get it done. Because then when you do, I think that's the best feeling in the world, is when you show yourself you truly were convinced that you weren't able to do this, but you went ahead and pushed through and got it done, and you overcame it, whether it's an extra rep at the gym, whether it's an extra phone call or sale at work, whether it's an extra hour with your kid doing something, really heart filling. I mean, so many different aspects of how that can carry over. And that's why I think fitness and nutrition these days is a whole nother topic. I think, the best we can do is still not probably the best we could do. So that's really the fundamental. If you want to have your full sound body and sound mind, you need to be paying attention to your nutrition, and you need to be getting in and getting your body moving and functioning properly, because we literally need these things to just operate at a base level. But then when you start getting in there and push yourself a little more, and you show yourself what you're capable of a little bit more than what you thought, then it starts pouring over into every part of your life, and your mindset starts shifting into looking at things objectively. And I've started seeing even the obstacles and the hardships that I face, they start turning into like, okay, well, rather than feeling like a victim, like, oh, this happened to me, I'm looking at it now, wondering what's the lesson I'm supposed to learn? What am I supposed to take from this? And I think you only get to that point where you actually push past the comfort, push past what you think you can do or what you want to do, and you're actually disciplined enough. Everybody wants to talk about motivation. The reality is it's discipline. It's doing that thing that you don't want to do. Last thing you want to do, it's like the cold plunge. I get up and get myself, not every day, like I said, most days, last thing I could think of wanting to get up and do in the morning, I usually wake up super cold, but I'll get in there and get in that 40-degree water, and I'll make myself do it. And yeah, I have the same reaction every morning. I'm like, this is the last thing I want to do.
I shower with cold water, but
Yeah, it's
plunge
similar. I mean,
it's a completely different. No,
it's
a
a
plunge is
progression.
different.
Trust me. Like
Yeah.
when I first started, it was a cold shower, and it was the same thing I had to work myself up to. And it is like when you start getting yourself to do it regularly, then your cold
Yeah.
shower will be not such a big deal. And then you can think of something, I had to progress into what I do now, but that's
Yeah.
kind of like life. If you don't push and progress and do the things you don't want to do, then you're never going to get to that point. Like some people that are out here doing these things that you look up to, and you're like, man, I respect the hell out of that. That guy's killing it. He's a savage. He gets his shit done. He shows up every day. Well, that guy didn't just wake up one day and become that person, and I take it and apply it to everything. And that's why in my program, it's, setting you up on a daily process where you can start tracking your stuff, where you can know. I like doing the tracking when I go into the gym for a workout, even because it takes all the mind work out. You can basically just go in there, go down the app, make, the list that you have. It tells you exactly what you did yesterday. So I need to do this today. Maybe I can push one more, and you kind of just shut off your mind, and then
So
you really
you do it through an app.
I do it through an app, and it syncs up with another app, MyFitnessPal, that actually tracks your food, scans barcodes. You can literally look up menus at restaurants. I mean, depends on how strict you want to get with it. But again, you start off at a certain point, and then you just make progress and start dialing it in more as you go. But yeah, I think those two things together really was what was a game changer for me in my fitness journey when I started taking this seriously about not even 2 years ago. And looking back, I was actually looking back at some pictures today. Somebody asked me, like, were you always that size? Because I put on some muscle, and with fitness and what I've been eating and being consistent about, I look back at pictures like 2-3 years ago, and it was almost unrecognizable. I was like, man, I didn't even realize that I had, I didn't realize that I looked like that back then. As a man, I'm tall, I'm kind of lanky, so I didn't want to be that skinny, lanky, tall guy.
Yeah.
So I made a decision and I put in the work and here I am. And that's just, I think, how everything in life kind of works. Do you want it bad enough to where you're willing to overcome the uncomfortable first steps of it? Because it's like pushing a boulder. You're gonna have the hardest time pushing that first few steps, but then it starts rolling, it starts catching momentum, and you start really having an easier time with it. And then after a while, man, you're barely touching it. You're just barely, giving it a little tap, and it's doing its own thing. And that's kind of how I feel like it's become for me. And I want that for everybody. I want everybody to experience what that feels like, is that this thing that's such a challenge, such an obstacle, and you don't want to start today. You're just like, man, I need to start. I need to go to the gym today, but I just can't. But then you do. And then a year down the road, you look back and you're looking forward to going to do that thing that you were dreading doing. So,
Yeah. One thing that social media has brought us is awareness, very much so. And something that I heard and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that's right, is that there are a lot of millionaires, a lot of people that are wealthy, and you look at them and they're not in shape. And nowadays, it's like you think about it, you're like, yes, you're thriving in one area of your life, but the more areas that are covered, the more I will look up to you. You
mhm,
know, it's hard to look up to someone that is not taking care of their own selves, because
exactly,
working out, no one can do it for you. You can't have your employees work out for you. That's
absolutely.
like the one thing that you have 100% control
Yeah,
over. So if I look at you and you're in a little bit of shape, then I'm like, oh, that person really cares for themselves. If you're not, then it's like, oh, they need to work on that.
I've never made the connection, but I love that you use that analogy, because think about it. You can have an assistant or someone, an employee, take care of just about any other tasks to run a business, but they
Not
can't
working
get your
out.
ass to the gym and get you there to do or make you eat a certain thing. Like literally, that's why those two things. I don't want to be just the fitness nutrition coach, but I just see that that's just the foundation. And that's what most people just don't understand how to optimize in order to get to all these other things that you want. Like everybody wants great things for themselves. And especially like, with social media and looking at these other lifestyles and what people are doing and the heights that they reach, you see those things and fantasize about them. But I think that's where anxiety really comes from. I heard something that told me a while back that anxiety does not exist in anywhere but the past or the present, or I'm sorry, the past and the future.
Future.
If you're truly in this present moment right now, focused on what you're doing, and for me, that comes down to working out at the gym or pushing myself or meditating or reading a book or whatnot, those things take you back into this present moment. But then the minute you get outside of that, because we all do, we always think about the past or the future, but when you do those things, you should feel good about that. If you're
And
doing these things for yourself daily, then you'll think about the future and be like, wow, I see that this is possible for me. I'm doing these things, so I can't wait to see where I'm at there. And people like me, I'm not the most proud of my past, but I'm actually proud that I've come from that far. I've come from those places where most people, I've even had people tell me, I don't know how you got out of that. And, I did. And I'm proud of that now. And now I just truly want to help other people that maybe feel lost and hopeless like I did, that don't
yeah,
know what that next step is or what that, because I'm also that person to where I need like a plan to feel good that I'm taking the right steps. If I'm kind
yeah,
of out here just wondering if I could do this and that'll help, or I could do this thing over here and that would help, but I don't know that there's an actual plan set forth that if I do these things, then I will get to where I'm going. So I think that's really just fundamentals, and that's why I do the coaching on the fitness and the nutrition. It does go past that, but we have to get to that point. I can't start people off at a point that they're not at yet, but I'll be
yeah,
continuing to elevate myself. I tell my people, I'm working right next side to you. I'm doing these things daily myself. And once we get
yeah,
to that point, I would love to see my people come in and pass me up and just
yeah,
start, because I learn from everybody too. I learn from my people that are on my program. I've learned a lot. But, I can't wait to see these people, passing me up and start learning from them, be like, man, look at you, that
Yeah.
gives me chills on my body.
And if any of you are watching this or listening to it and you're like, I don't know how to stay away from the past or the future, here's a hack. Just be grateful. The
Mhm,
moment you start being grateful for the present, then you let go of the past and let go of the future.
mhm.
Where can they find you, James?
So I want to say one more thing. I also
Yes.
think, and I heard this somewhere, I think you should truly show gratitude through action. I think you show gratitude that you are grateful through making those decisions from listening to your conscience. Your conscience is not going to steer you wrong. Your conscience isn't ever back here telling you to go do these things that are going to get you in trouble in your life or take you
Mhm.
backwards. I think all of our consciences are like a voice from God, like I said, and they're just here to direct us. So, yeah, I just think being grateful, it's so important, and that's been a big part of my journey. But also being grateful, but not willing to do the things that are you're being called to do is kind of being ungrateful. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I love that.
100%.
Um,
Take action, guys.
yeah. So I'm on Instagram, only_elevation_ fitness.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much for being here with us and giving us so many golden nuggets.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. This is awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. And thank you guys for watching or listening to another episode of Successful Quitters. My name is Sara Nunez Bee. I am your host, and I will see you on the next one.